All right, let's jump into today's program. Yesterday, as I mentioned, Republican lawmakers in North Carolina used their supermajority to override their Democrat governor's veto of 6 bills, including 3 of those bills that we here at FRC have been tracking. There was House Bill 808, which prohibits cross-sex hormones, puberty blockers, and surgeries for minors. Then HB 574, also known as the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, and SB 49, also known as the Parents' Bill of Rights. Well, GOP leaders in the state emphatically responded to the wishes of North Carolinians who voted them into a supermajority. And this is why, frankly, we here at Family Research Council encourage you always to vote in every federal, state, and local election. It all matters. Well, joining me now to discuss this is State Representative from North Carolina, Ken Fontenot. He represents the 24th District of North Carolina and was one of the primary sponsors of House Bill 808. Representative Fontenot, welcome to Washington Watch.
Hey, Jody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, listen, congratulations on reviving these bills. I think the eyes of many all across the nation were watching. So let's go through these, Ken, one by one. Can you talk about each of the bills?
Absolutely. For me, at least, House Bill 808 was a passion, simply because I feel like this research indicates statistically that children are being taken advantage of and parents are being confused and in many senses given false dichotomies. For instance, you'll discover when you look at the case of a lot of detransitioners, one of the most terrible things said to these parents who are in a crisis was, do you want to have a dead daughter or a living son? And things like that, when you look at the fact that the research is weak at best, and that it presumes gender dysphoria to be the driver of other comorbidities rather than the other way around, we have done a grave injustice to these children, especially in light of things like telling these children that these surgeries are reversible when they're not, and that stopping puberty has no effect. That makes no sense. The logic does not follow. And so 808 simply put these type of life-altering decisions off until a child's 18 years old or it becomes an adult. And at that point in time, they can pursue those if they so choose. But it's not just, it's not fair or moral or right to do these things in puberty when children don't understand the full ramifications of what they're doing, especially when it's promoted as scientifically sound rather than the radical experimentation that it is. So 808 for me carried a special place because I just feel like we have to protect our children. And I feel like it was the same with 574. You know, proponents of 574 or opponents of 574 wanted to argue there's no biological difference of male or female. And it's interesting because Duke School, one of the meccas of the gender identity movement, their law school released a study saying that in 2017 alone, Allison Felix's gold medal record was broken 15,000 times in 1 year by boys and men. The same was said of the 1 mile record holder, and that at the very least, the lowest male in the lowest level of testosterone is 4 to 5 times higher than the highest male, than the highest female, than the highest with the highest level of testosterone. And that statistically, there is, without a doubt, a physical difference in the athleticism of 2 athletes of opposite genders given the same training. There's no doubt about this. And to say otherwise is a flat out lie. And therefore, we need to keep biological men out of women's sports. And that doesn't even get to the things like girls being forced to change with men in the locker room, young women being sexually assaulted at school because of these dangerous policies. Or in my state, a young lady was playing in a volleyball game against a trans woman, The trans woman spiked the ball on her and broke her neck. She still has cognitive issues to this day. Lastly, the Parental Bill of Rights, I think, gets to the heart of what we're seeing in Washington, where we're seeing state-sanctioned violations of constitutional law. And what I mean is, one of the things we spelled out in the Parental Bill of Rights is that parents must be notified if their child is having a gender crisis, as well as other crises. You know, we notify if a child is suicidal, homicidal, is having issues with discipline. But why has it suddenly all become that a school can make a decision or a teacher can make a decision whether a parent is trustworthy or not? We as a nation have an institution that does that. It's called the Department of Social Services. That is not the job of teachers. And it is not the criteria placed in a school. They're there to educate. And the Parental Bill of Rights just makes that abundantly clear that it is not right for a school to withhold information that a parent should know about. It is wrong, it's dangerous, and it also creates privileged relationships between teachers, administrators, and students that can, in a time when we are seeing immoral things take place in school, create unsafe situations. So I'm really I just feel very honored to have partook in this battle to override these vetoes in a time when we need people to just do what's right. And unfortunately, Governor Cooper didn't. But thankfully, the North Carolina House and in several of those bills, several of our Democrat friends did do right when we overrode those vetoes.
Well, this is what makes it so important. Every election counts, and the fact that the voters of North Carolina have entrusted you with the supermajority, it's for times like this that is so critically important. Wouldn't you agree, I'm sure you would, that this override supports the values of North Carolinians who gave you the supermajority? I mean, you did, as you just described, as a legislative body, the right thing.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting because popular media wants to paint this as a cultural war of right versus left. But when you look at the three core issues, Parental Bill of Rights, the Gender Reassignment Bill, and the Female and Women's Sports, you'll discover that the people pushing this, that are proponents of fighting for these things, of keeping men out of women's bathrooms, of keeping children from being mutilated, they come from all sides. And there is a huge vocal part fighting for what was just common sense. And so,
absolutely. It is common sense. And listen, it is a strategy of the left. I mean, I've heard it described, they poke the bear, and then the bear responds, and the left blames the bear. I mean, but that's the cycle that we have here. And I mean, even in your own state, I think it was 2016, the media and everyone came after y'all for the bathroom bill, saying that cost your state millions of dollars. And look, there's no doubt you're going to face some pushback on this, but what do you think is going to happen as a result of, in terms of pushback, in terms of this override of the governor's veto?
I think, the pushback is not going to be what it was in 2016 for several reasons. One, the research and the statistics support what we're doing. Two, our values support it. And then three, what's interesting is that the response from our critics has not been what it was in 2016, because I feel like America knows men don't belong in female sports. And that is not a step forward for women. It is a step back. They have fought hard for those opportunities. And to take them away, especially at the collegiate level, like what happened to Riley Gaines and Leah Thomas, who took her title, is a travesty. And everyone knows this. For instance, the Olympic Committee has passed the same law we did. And the Olympic Committee has not heard anything on this, and they will not hear anything on this, because everybody gets it, that this isn't just or right. So I'm really not worried about a pushback, because they know they can't sustain it on moral grounds.
Thank you so much, Representative Ken Fontenot. We are deeply grateful for your leadership on this bill and your colleagues there. Great job. Well done. We all give a great big thank you. And also thank you for joining us on Washington Watch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.